Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off today's presentation on transformation of sentences. This is the first slide, and I want to briefly introduce what we'll be exploring. We'll look into how sentences can change form while retaining their meaning, covering various types of transformations. So, stay with me as we delve into this interesting topic. Let's get started. Let's take a closer look at the contents of this presentation. First, we have the topic of exclamatory to assertive sentences. These are sentences that change their tone from expressing strong emotion to stating a fact or opinion in a straightforward way. Next, we move on to changing sentences, which involves transforming one type of sentence into another to suit different contexts or purposes. Then, we have the main focus, types of sentences. Understanding the different types helps us communicate more effectively and clearly. And finally, there's the task. This will likely involve applying what we've learned so far. Throughout the presentation, keep in mind that recognizing these sentence structures and their functions is crucial for improving your language skills and making your communication more precise. Let's take a closer look at the difference between exclamatory and assertive sentences. Exclamatory sentences are used to express strong emotions or feelings, like surprise, excitement, or anger. They often start with words like what or how and end with an exclamation mark. Now, assertive sentences, on the other hand, are used to make statements or convey facts. They are straightforward and provide information without emotional emphasis. Understanding this distinction is important because it helps us communicate more effectively and choose the right tone for our messages. Recognizing when to use an exclamatory sentence versus an assertive one can really enhance the clarity and impact of our communication, especially in professional or persuasive contexts. So, in the broader scope of our presentation, mastering these sentence types is key to expressing ourselves clearly and convincingly. Now, let's talk about how we convert exclamatory sentences into assertive ones. When we make this change, we generally restore the normal word order. However, you'll notice that we often add certain words to retain the emphasis or the force of the original exclamation. For example, if you have the exclamatory sentence, "What a beautiful flower," the assertive equivalent would be, "It is a beautiful flower." Here, we've kept the core idea, but we might also add words like really or indeed to emphasize the beauty if needed. Similarly, with "What a great victory," the assertive form is, "It is a great victory." The key point is that the exclamation's energy is replaced with a simple statement, but sometimes adding words like very or indeed can help capture the original enthusiasm. Another example is, "How kind of you to help him like that," which becomes, "It is very kind of you to help him like that." Notice how we add very to highlight the kindness, which was implied in the exclamation. And finally, "What a glorious morning," turns into, "It is indeed a glorious morning." Here, indeed helps convey the sense of admiration or wonder that the exclamation expressed. Overall, the main idea is that converting exclamations into assertive sentences involves restoring the usual word order, but often we add words that suggest the original emphasis or emotional force. This technique is useful for making our statements clear while still capturing the original sentiment. Let's take a closer look at the different types of sentences. Understanding these is fundamental because they help us communicate more effectively and clearly. First, we have declarative sentences, which are used to make statements or provide information. They are the most common type and help us share facts or opinions. Next are interrogative sentences, which are designed to ask questions. They're essential for gathering information or clarifying details. Then we have imperative sentences, which give commands or instructions. Think of them as the way we tell someone what to do. Lastly, exclamatory sentences express strong emotions or surprises, adding emphasis and feeling to our communication. Recognizing these types helps us craft sentences that suit our purpose and make our message more impactful, which ties into the larger theme of effective communication throughout this presentation. A simple sentence is basically a sentence that has only one clause. It contains just one subject and one predicate, making it straightforward and easy to understand. For example, take the sentence, "I drink warm milk every day." Here, I is the subject, and drink warm milk every day is the predicate. This kind of sentence is useful because it gets a clear point across without any extra complexity. Throughout this presentation, we've been exploring different types of sentences, and simple sentences are the foundation. They help us communicate clearly and effectively, especially when we want to emphasize a single idea or action. Remember, keeping sentences simple can make your writing or speaking more direct and impactful. All right, let's take a closer look at complex sentences. A complex sentence is one that contains a principal, or main, clause along with one or more subordinate clauses. These subordinate clauses add extra information or context but can't stand alone as complete sentences. For example, think about the sentence, "He was unhappy though he was rich." Here, "he was unhappy" is the main idea, while "though he was rich" provides additional context, explaining why he might be unhappy. Recognizing these structures is important because they help us add depth and nuance to our writing and speaking. Throughout this presentation, we've been exploring how different sentence types shape our communication, and understanding complex sentences is key to creating more sophisticated and expressive language. Now let's take a closer look at the different types of sentences listed in this table. First, we have simple sentences, which contain just one independent clause. That means they have a single complete thought, like "the cat sleeps." Easy to understand and straightforward. Next, we have complex sentences. These include one main clause plus one or more subordinate clauses, which add extra information but can't stand alone. For example, "Because it was raining, I stayed indoors." The subordinate clause explains the reason, making the sentence more detailed. Then we come to compound sentences. These combine two or more independent clauses, usually joined by a coordinating conjunction like "and," "but," or. An example would be, "Mary went to work but I went home." Both clauses could stand alone, but here they're linked to show contrast or connection. The key point here is understanding how these sentence types help us vary our writing and speech for clarity and emphasis. Recognizing these structures allows us to craft sentences that are more engaging and precise. This ties into the overall theme of effective communication, where sentence structure plays a vital role. Let's take a closer look at changing sentences. This is a crucial concept because it highlights how we can adapt our language to better suit different contexts or audiences. When we talk about changing sentences, we're really focusing on modifying structure, tone, or emphasis to achieve clearer communication. For example, shifting from a passive to an active voice can make our message more direct and engaging. Or, rephrasing a complex sentence into a simpler one helps ensure our audience easily understands the point. This idea ties back to the overall theme of effective communication. It's about being flexible and intentional with our language choices. By mastering how to change sentences thoughtfully, we can make our messages more impactful and tailored to our listeners. So always consider the purpose of your message and who you're speaking to, then adjust your sentences accordingly. This skill enhances clarity, engagement, and connection with your audience. Now, let's look at an example of how we can change a sentence to better express the meaning. In the original sentence, "He is too weak to walk," we see a common structure used to show that someone is so weak that they cannot do something. But sometimes, that structure can sound a bit awkward or less natural. So we can rephrase it as, "He is so weak that he cannot walk." This version is often clearer and more conversational. Similarly, with the sentence, "The poem was so hard that I could not understand it," we see the same pattern. We can change it to, "The poem was too hard for me to understand," which sounds more natural in everyday speech. And if we want to keep it simple and direct, we might say, "He is very weak and he cannot walk," or "The poem was very hard and I could not understand it." The key takeaway here is understanding how to use "so," "that," and "to" structures effectively. They help us express cause and effect clearly, but choosing the right form depends on the context and emphasis. This example ties into our overall theme of improving clarity and variety in our language, making our communication more effective and engaging. Now, let's look at some example changes to sentences to see how we can make our meaning clearer. Here, We start with sentences like, "She went to Dhaka to visit the zoo," and "We read the newspaper to get information." These are straightforward, but sometimes we want to express the same ideas more explicitly or with a clearer purpose. For instance, instead of saying, "She went to Dhaka to visit the zoo," we can say, "She went to Dhaka so that she could visit the zoo." This version emphasizes the purpose of her trip, making it more precise. Similarly, "We read the newspaper to get information" can be rephrased as, "We read the newspaper so that we can get information," again, highlighting the reason behind our action. Another way to express these ideas is by combining the actions or goals. For example, "She wanted to visit the zoo and went to Dhaka," or "We want to get information and we read the newspaper." These versions connect the actions more directly, showing the relationship between the desire and the action. The key takeaway here is that we have different ways to express the same idea, often by adding, so that, to show purpose or combining actions to highlight their connection. This is an important part of making our sentences clearer and more effective, fitting into our overall theme of improving communication skills through sentence restructuring. Now, let's look at this example change to see how we can improve clarity and flow in our sentences. The original sentence is, "Finishing the work he returned home." While it's correct, it feels a bit abrupt and less connected. So one way to make it smoother is to say, "When he finished the work, he returned home." This version clearly shows the sequence of events and connects the ideas more naturally with the word, "when." Another variation is, "He finished the work and returned home." This is more concise and straightforward, combining the two actions into one smooth sentence. Now, if we want to emphasize the process or the reason behind the success, we can say, "As he worked hard, he succeeded in life." This highlights the effort involved and links it directly to the success. Similarly, "He worked hard and succeeded in life" is a simple, effective way to connect the two ideas without extra words. The key takeaway here is that changing sentence structure can improve clarity and flow, making your writing more natural and engaging. Remember, these adjustments help your message come across more clearly and connect better with your audience, which is essential in effective communication. Let's look at this example of changing sentences to better understand how we can express ideas more smoothly. On the left, we have sentences like, "In spite of his poverty, he was honest, and despite his illness, he attended the class." These are correct, but sometimes they can be a bit lengthy or awkward. Now notice how we can improve these sentences by using words like although or though to connect the ideas more naturally. For example, "Although he was poor, he was honest." This version is more concise and flows better. Similarly, "Though he was ill, he attended the class" is a cleaner way to say the same thing. You'll also see that we can simplify the sentences even further into shorter, more direct forms like, "He was poor but honest," or "He was ill but attended the class." These are great for making your writing more straightforward and impactful. Overall, the key takeaway is that changing sentence structures using words like although, though, or but helps to make your ideas clearer and your writing more engaging. This is an important part of improving your sentence variety and overall communication skills. Let's look at this example change to understand how we can make our sentences more effective. When we say, "By studying well you will get a good result," it's clear, but it can be made even stronger using the conditional form. For instance, "If you study well, you will get a good result." This version emphasizes the cause and effect relationship more directly. Similarly, instead of "By attending classes regularly, you will learn more," we can say, "Attend classes regularly, and you will learn more." This is a more natural and impactful way to express the same idea. The key here is to connect the action with the result using the right sentence structure, which makes our message clearer and more persuasive. Throughout this presentation, remember that changing the sentence structure can help us communicate more effectively and highlight the importance of consistent effort. Whether it's studying well or attending classes regularly, the main idea is that these actions lead to better results. So, mastering these sentence transformations will enhance both your speaking and writing skills, making your messages more convincing and engaging. Now let's look at how we can change sentences to convey the same meaning in different ways. For example, the sentence, "Without taking physical exercise you will get fat," can be rephrased to improve clarity or emphasis. One way is to say, "If you do not take physical exercise, you will get fat." This version emphasizes the condition more clearly. Alternatively, you could say, "Take physical exercise or you will get fat," which presents a direct choice. Similarly, a sentence like, "Without moving an inch you will die," can be transformed into, "Unless you move an inch, you will die." Here, the word "unless" introduces a condition that makes the sentence more formal or precise. Or you could simplify it to "move an inch or you will die," which is more direct and straightforward. The key takeaway here is that changing sentence structures allows us to express the same idea in different ways, sometimes for emphasis, clarity, or style. This flexibility is important in effective communication, and it ties into our overall theme of mastering language and expression. Let's look at this example to understand how we can improve sentence structure for clarity and flow. The first sentence, "Because of his weakness he could not go to work," is correct, but it feels a bit clunky. By changing it to, "Because he was weak, he could not go to work," we make it more natural and easier to follow. Similarly, the second sentence, "Because of his honesty he is respected by all," can be rephrased to, "As he is honest, he is respected by all." This version sounds more conversational and smooth. Now, let's see how we can combine these ideas with coordinating conjunctions. For example, "He was weak and he could not go to work." This combines two related ideas into a single, clear sentence. And likewise, "He is honest and he is respected by all" connects these qualities directly, emphasizing the relationship between honesty and respect. The key takeaway here is that changing sentence structures, by using conjunctions, commas, and clearer phrasing, can make our writing more natural and impactful. This is an important part of improving overall communication, which ties into our broader goal of effective expression. Let's look at an example of how we can change sentences to make them more detailed or clearer. For instance, 2 years ago, I was living in London. Now, if I want to expand that sentence, I could say, "It was 2 years ago when I was living in London." This adds a bit more context and makes the timing clearer. Alternatively, I could say, "It was 2 years ago and I was living in London," which combines the time and the activity more directly. Now, moving to another example, Jamshedpur is a green city. To make this sentence more descriptive, I could say, "Jamshedpur is a city which is green," emphasizing the characteristic of the city. Or I could also say, "Jamshedpur is a city and it is green," which connects the two ideas more straightforwardly. The key takeaway here is that changing sentence structures can help us convey our ideas more clearly and vividly. This is especially useful when we want to add emphasis or provide additional information. Throughout the presentation, keep in mind that how we phrase our sentences can greatly impact the clarity and engagement of our communication. Let's take a closer look at task. This slide is all about understanding the key points thoroughly, but in a conversational way. I want to emphasize the most important concepts so they really stand out. Remember, connecting these points to the overall theme of our presentation is crucial, as it helps build a cohesive story. So, as I go through this, I'll be highlighting how each element ties back to our main message, ensuring everything feels connected and meaningful. This approach helps us communicate more effectively and keeps the audience engaged. Now, let's look at the task on this slide. The goal here is to change sentences in different ways as directed. First, we need to transform the sentences into simple sentences. For example, the sentence, "By reading more you will learn more," can be simplified to focus on one main idea. Next, we have to change some sentences into complex sentences. These are sentences that contain a main clause and a subordinate clause, like, "Since she was idle, I disliked her." Then we move on to compound sentences, where we connect two independent ideas using conjunctions like "and," "but," or. An example from the slide is, "He ran fast, but he could not win." Finally, there's a sentence that requires a bit of a different approach. "I know where he lives." This sentence can be combined or expanded, depending on the instruction, but it also illustrates the importance of clarity and precision in sentence structure. The main takeaway here is understanding how to manipulate sentence structures to improve clarity, style, and emphasis. These skills are essential for effective communication, especially in academic and professional writing. Connecting this to the overall theme of our presentation, mastering sentence structure enhances our ability to express ideas clearly and persuasively. Now, let's look at how we can transform sentences into different types to improve our sentence structure skills. First, turning simple sentences into complex sentences involves adding a dependent clause to give more detail. For example, by reading more you will learn more can be rewritten as if you read more, you will learn more. The key here is the use of if to show the condition, making the sentence more nuanced. Next, we have the task of converting sentences into compound sentences. These sentences combine two independent ideas using coordinating conjunctions like so, because, or but. For instance, we learn English so that we may get a good job becomes we learn English to get a good job. Similarly, since she was idle, I disliked her turns into because of her idleness, I disliked her. Notice how these join two related thoughts smoothly. Moving on to simple sentences, these are straightforward and contain only one idea. For example, if you spare the rod, you will spoil the child simplifies to spare the rod and you will spoil the child. It's a direct way to present the message. Another example, the weather was too hot for me to go out, becomes the weather was so hot that I could not go out. This emphasizes the cause-effect relationship clearly. We also see that even when someone runs fast but doesn't win, we can express that in a simple sentence. He ran fast, but he could not win. Or, despite being poor, a person can still be honest, which we express as although he was poor, he was honest. Lastly, to express knowledge of someone's location, instead of saying, I know where he lives, we can say, I know his address, making the sentence more concise. By practicing these transformations, complex, compound, and simple sentences, you enhance your ability to communicate more effectively and precisely. This skill is fundamental in crafting clear, engaging, and varied sentences throughout your writing and speech.